Back to that breaking news in downtown Jacksonville. Sheriff TK Waters announcing an arrest in a 40-year-old cold case.
In the early hours of December 28, 1987, someone broke into a Florida trailer where a 20-year-old mother was sleeping with her baby. Before he left, he did something no one has ever fully explained. He picked up her crying 13-month-old daughter, carried her to the living room, and carefully surrounded her with pillows so she wouldn't fall. Then he walked back into the bedroom. For 39 years, that night went unanswered. And here's the part that's almost impossible to believe. For most of those years, even the man responsible didn't know what he'd done. Her name was Missy. She was 20 years old. That baby grew up, had a daughter of her own, and didn't understand what she'd lost until her own little girl turned exactly the same age. And it wasn't until this past summer that an elderly man picked up the phone, called a sheriff's office in Florida, and said he wanted to set things straight. What he said next would finally answer a question this family had been asking since 1987. Before we go any further, a warning. This case involves the murder of a young mother and contains details some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Over the next few minutes, you'll see exactly how this case unfolded. The investigation that ran cold for nearly 4 decades, the family that never stopped pushing for an answer, and the confession that came not from police work, but from the one person who could have ended this on his own, decades earlier. We cover exactly these kinds of stories. Cold cases and confessions that finally answer questions decades after everyone stopped believing they ever would. If you're new here, drop a comment and let us know where in the world you're watching from. We read every one. And if you want to see cases like this told in full, subscribing means you won't miss the next. Missy Ellison was 20 years old. She lived in a mobile home on Colgene Road in Jacksonville, Florida, with 2 roommates and her 13-month-old daughter, Casey. She was the second of 5 sisters, and by most accounts, an easy person to be around. Generous almost to a fault. The kind of friend who'd give you the shirt off her back without thinking twice about it. By December of 1987, most of her days revolved around her daughter. She was young to already be a mother, but people who knew her said it suited her, that she took to it naturally, the way some people just do. Her family remembers her the way most families remember the person everyone got along with. Not the loudest one in the room, just someone who made things easier for everyone else, without making a point of it. She had plans, the way any 20-year-old does. A daughter to raise. A life that, up until 3 days after Christmas in 1987, looked like it had all the time in the world ahead of it. That night, none of it mattered to whoever broke into her home. Sometime around 4 in the morning on December 28, 1987, someone broke into Missy's home. Nobody saw what happened next. What we know is what investigators pieced together afterward, starting with the medical examiner's ruling: homicide. Cause of death: blunt force trauma to the head and neck. Before the person responsible left the house, they did something strange. They picked up Missy's crying 13-month-old daughter, carried her out of the bedroom, and set her down on the living room couch, then surrounded her with pillows, carefully enough that she wouldn't roll off. It wasn't the act of someone panicking and running. It was deliberate, almost careful. Then they went back into the bedroom and through the rest of the house, looking for anything worth taking. Money, mostly. Whatever they could find. By the time they left, the only sound in that trailer was a baby crying alone in the next room, with no idea that the person who just put her down gently was the same person who'd taken her mother from her, permanently, in the room next door. At 4:40 that morning, Missy's roommates found the baby first, crying, alone, on the living room couch. Not upset in the way a baby wakes up upset, just alone, and left there long enough that someone finally came looking. They went to check on Missy. She was in her bedroom, in bed. She didn't answer. There was blood on the sheets. Her head had been positioned beneath a pillow. Investigators would later note her nightgown had been pulled up, and that soot and ash from a fireplace log were found on the bed. The same log, it would turn out, that had been used to kill her. Police were called. What started as a welfare check became, within minutes, a homicide investigation. Detectives worked it hard, at least at first. They canvassed the neighborhood, chased down leads, tried to figure out who could have done this to a young mother in her own home. None of it went anywhere. No arrest. No suspect who ever stuck. As the months turned into years, the case did what most unsolved murders eventually do. It slowed down, then stalled out almost completely. Missy's mother, Catherine, never let it go the way the investigation seemed to. For years, she went to the sheriff's office herself, bringing whatever she could find, asking the same questions, hoping someone would finally have a different answer. Catherine died in 2019. She never got one. By then, the case was over 30 years old, and it had one thing going for it that most cold cases from that era don't. A single, forgotten piece of evidence, still sitting in a file somewhere in Jacksonville. Nobody knew yet that it would matter again. A mother who spent years asking the same question and never once got an answer before she died. That's the part of a cold case most people never think about. Not just the crime, but everyone left waiting behind it. That's exactly the kind of story this channel exists for. If you want to see the next one, the cases where someone finally gets an answer, even decades too late, subscribing means you won't miss it. Catherine wasn't the only one who refused to let this go. In 2018, a friend of the family brought Missy's case to a nonprofit called Project Cold Case, an organization built entirely around helping families of unsolved homicide victims keep their loved ones' stories from disappearing into old file cabinets. They built a page for Missy, her photo, her story, everything the family had gathered over the years, all in one place, public, searchable, waiting for the right person to stumble across it someday. Nobody knew yet just how literally that would end up mattering. Then, in January of 2026, Cassie, Missy's daughter, the same baby who'd been found crying alone on that couch 39 years earlier, now a grown woman with 3 children of her own, stood in front of cameras alongside the organization and First Coast Crime Stoppers and made one more public appeal, the same way her family had been making them, on and off, for decades. "Someone knows exactly what happened that night," she said. "Someone remembers a detail that has never been spoken. Someone has lived with this knowledge for nearly 4 decades. She was right. She just had no way of knowing yet how soon that would matter." 6 months after Casey stood in front of those cameras, on July 8, 2026, a 70-year-old man in Middleburg, Florida, picked up the phone and called the Clay County Sheriff's Office. He told the dispatcher he had information about Missy Ellison's death. He said he wanted to set things straight. His name was Gary Glowacz. By the end of that day, he was in handcuffs. According to the arrest report, Glowacz told detectives that back in March of 2026, he'd come across an article about the case online, Missy's story, still unsolved after all those years, part of the same push Casey and Project Cold Case had been building since January. That's when he says he first realized Missy had actually died. He waited 4 months to come forward. According to investigators, he told them he didn't want to disrupt the holidays for a family he'd never met, but who he now understood had been carrying this for 39 years because of him. When he finally called, he reportedly told detectives that in 1987, he'd been struggling with addiction and had broken into the trailer looking for money, something to sell, something to get by on. He said he found Missy asleep with her baby. He claimed he panicked, picked up a log from inside the house, and struck her once. He described carrying the baby into the living room afterward and surrounding her with pillows so she wouldn't fall. Then, according to the report, he went back through the house, searching under the mattress, looking for anything worth taking. Here's what made investigators take his call seriously in the first place. Glowacz described details about that night that had never been made public. Not in any news report. Not in the article he says he read. Not anywhere. The log. The soot and ash left behind on the bed. The exact way Missy had been found. The pillows around the baby. These were specifics that, as far as investigators could tell, only the person who was actually there could have known. It's worth being clear about what that means and what it doesn't. It's strong evidence, strong enough that police moved quickly to arrest him the same day he called. But it's still evidence in a case that hasn't gone to trial yet. Evidence a defense attorney will have every opportunity to challenge in court. For now, it's the reason a case that sat cold for 39 years suddenly had someone in custody. Here's the part of this case that's almost impossible to sit with. In 1987, Gary Glowacz lived less than half a mile from Missy's trailer, and on the exact same day her body was found, he was already sitting in police custody. Not for this. For an unrelated burglary, in that same neighborhood, hours after her roommates found her. He was right there. Investigators had him, in a room, on the same day, over a different crime, in the same small stretch of streets where Missy had just been killed. Nobody connected the two. There was no reason to, not with what they knew at the time. No DNA to compare. No way to link one arrest to a murder happening blocks away on the same afternoon. He was questioned, processed, and released back into the same neighborhood he'd never actually left. For the next 39 years, that's exactly where he stayed. By the end of that same day he called, July 8, 2026, Gary Glowacz was under arrest. He was formally charged with second-degree murder and armed burglary with assault or battery. He's currently being held without bond at the Duval County Jail. At a press conference following the arrest, Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters addressed the case directly. Television shows condition us to believe that homicide cases that are not solved within the first 48 hours will not be solved, he said. That is patently false. He also said the arrest, while it could never fill the hole this had left in the family's life, was hopefully one more step toward whatever healing was still possible after 39 years. On August 13, 2026, Gary Glowacz stood in a Duval County courtroom next to his public defender for his arraignment. Despite everything he reportedly told detectives, despite the details that matched a scene no one outside that room should have known, he pleaded not guilty to every charge against him. It's worth pausing on that. A confession, even a detailed one given voluntarily, isn't the same thing as a conviction. Under the law, Glowacz is presumed innocent unless and until a jury decides otherwise. What happens next isn't a formality. It's an actual trial, with actual evidence tested in an actual courtroom. The same process every defendant is entitled to, regardless of what they may have told police beforehand. As of now, that trial hasn't happened. His next pre-trial hearing was set for the end of August 2026. This case isn't closed. It's just finally, after 39 years, moving. Cassie was there for the arraignment. 13 months old the night her mother died, she was now a grown woman with 3 children of her own, sitting in a courtroom to watch the man accused of killing her mother plead not guilty. She said the arrest changed how she sees the world. Not fixed it, not undone anything, but changed it. 39 years of not knowing is its own kind of weight, and even an arrest doesn't lift that all at once. Her family has been honest about where they actually are. They don't feel like this is over. An arrest isn't a verdict. A confession, even a detailed one, isn't the same as a trial finishing. They're still waiting, the same way they've been waiting since 1987, just waiting for something different now. Before any of this happened, the family had already been planning something to honor Missy's memory. They're still planning it. Whatever happens in court, that part doesn't change. For 39 years, this case sat exactly the way most cold cases do. Worked hard at first, then slower, then not moving at all. No DNA breakthrough cracked it open. No new witness came forward. No piece of forensic technology finally caught up to old evidence, the way it has in so many other cases like this one. What happened here was something rarer, and in some ways harder to explain. A man read an article about a crime he'd apparently spent decades not fully understanding he'd committed, and instead of staying quiet, he picked up the phone. Whether that call was guilt, or age, or something else entirely, is something only he actually knows. What it did, regardless of the reason behind it, was hand a family the one thing 39 years of investigation alone never could: a name, and a case finally moving toward an answer in court. That answer isn't decided yet. But for the first time since 1987, it's actually being asked, out loud, in a room where someone has to respond. Missy Ellison's case spent 39 years unanswered, not because nobody was looking, but because the one person who could end it stayed silent for almost 4 decades, until he didn't. If you want to see the next case where a cold trail finally starts moving again, whether it's DNA, a confession, or something nobody could have predicted, that's exactly what this channel covers. Subscribe, and you'll be here for it. This has been Unresolved Case.